The narrative of Pope Leo XIV and Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle meeting in the Apostolic Palace is a tapestry of sacred silence and shared purpose, woven against the backdrop of a new pontificate poised to reshape the Catholic Church's mission. The heavy wooden doors, polished by centuries of history, creak open to reveal not just a meeting, but a moment where the Holy Spirit seems to linger in the marble-clad chamber. Pope Leo, a shepherd forged in the crucible of Peru's mountain villages, and Cardinal Tagle, a son of the Philippines whose heart beats for the marginalized, sit not as hierarchs, but as brothers in Christ. Their conversation, shrouded in reverence, is less about titles and more about discerning God's call for a church at a delicate crossroads. The question posed, what position in the Vatican is most fitting for Cardinal Tagle under Pope Leo XIV, invites us to explore this moment, drawing on Tagle's real-world qualifications, the narrative's evocative imagery, and the spiritual weight of their encounter. In the sacred hush of the Apostolic Palace, time slows as Pope Leo XIV and Cardinal Tagle meet, their footsteps echoing across stone floors worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims and popes. The narrative paints a scene of profound intimacy. No cameras, no aides, just two men whose paths, Leo's born in the gritty simplicity of a working-class family, Tagle's in the candlelit faith of a Filipino home, converge in a shared vision of a church that listens before it leads. Pope Leo, with lines on his face etched by years of carrying the poor's burdens, extends a hand to Tagle, calling him Luis, with a warmth that transcends protocol. Tagle's response, "I am here to listen," is not a platitude but a vow, reflecting his lifelong posture of humility and openness. The narrative underscores Tagle's unique gifts. His ability to weep with the suffering, kneel with the broken, and speak to the hearts of youth and skeptics alike. His global reputation as the Asian Francis stems from homilies that silence shouting crowds, from South Korea's defectors to Nigeria's trafficking victims, with a gentleness that makes the gospel feel near. Pope Leo, shaped by years of celebrating Mass on makeshift altars in Peru, sees in Tagle not a rival but a fellow pilgrim, a man who embodies the Church's call to mercy and mission. Their meeting, unlisted on the papal schedule, carries a thunderous silence, suggesting that whatever is decided or left unsaid will ripple across continents, shaping the Church's path in an era hungry for hope. Cardinal Tagle serves as pro-prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization, a role that places him at the heart of the Church's missionary outreach. He oversees efforts to spread the gospel in regions where faith is nascent, from remote African villages to urban centers in Asia. His work involves nurturing missionary dioceses, training clergy to weave the gospel into local cultures, and fostering interfaith dialogue to bridge divides. As a member of the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue and the Congregation for Catholic Education, Tagle shapes the Church's approach to global education and ecumenism. His theological depth, honed at institutions like the Catholic University of America, combines with a pastoral charisma that draws thousands to his talks, whether at World Youth Day or in parish halls. The narrative's depiction of Tagle spending hours in the dicastery's chapel, rooted in prayer, reflects his spiritual grounding, while his visits to marginalized communities, kneeling with drug addicts, listening to refugees, mirror Pope Leo's own ministry of presence. Tagle's influence extends beyond his official duties. In the Philippines, he is a national icon, his boyhood memories of carrying groceries for nuns now woven into the lore of Cavité's faithful. Globally, he is a bridge, melting Europe's cynicism with his laughter, uplifting Africa's weary with his empathy, and inspiring Asia's youth with his relatable faith. The narrative's mention of movements like Lead Like Luis and homilies sparking renewal in places like Mumbai and Vietnam underscores his ability to ignite change without seeking the spotlight. The narrative does not assign Tagle a specific role, but its emphasis on trust, listening, and a shared commitment to the periphery suggests that Pope Leo envisions him as a partner in a pontificate of bridges, not barriers. The first potential position is remaining pro-prefect, or becoming full prefect of the dicastery for evangelization. The narrative casts Tagle as a prophet and spiritual mediator, roles that resonate with his leadership in the dicastery. His work, supporting missionaries in places like Papua New Guinea, training priests to speak the gospel in languages from Swahili to Tagalog, embodies Pope Leo's call to walk slowly with the poor. Elevating Tagle to full prefect would grant him greater authority to shape the Church's missionary strategy, particularly in the Global South, where Catholicism is surging. The narrative's image of Tagle visiting parishes and praying in the dicastery's chapel suggests he is already a beacon of evangelization, his homilies sparking movements from Haiti to Poland. His ability to connect with youth, evident in World Youth Day talks that draw tears and cheers, could be amplified through initiatives like a global youth synod, aligning with Leo's vision of a listening church. This role maximizes Tagle's pastoral charisma and theological insight, allowing him to remain a global bridge. However, the role's demands could strain his time for direct pastoral engagement, a cornerstone of his ministry. The second option is Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church. The Camerlengo's role, managing the church during a sede vacante, requires a figure of unimpeachable integrity and operational acumen. The narrative's thunderous silence surrounding the meeting, coupled with Tagle's 5 words, "I am here to listen," positions him as a trusted confidant for Pope Leo. His leadership of Caritas Internationalis during global crises, from typhoons in the Philippines to refugee flows in the Middle East, showcases his ability to navigate complex transitions. The narrative's mention of the Swiss Guard straightening their posture as Tagle enters suggests a reverence for his presence, hinting at his readiness for a role like Camerlengo. In Cavite, parishioners praying at the grotto see him as a steady hand, a man who once carried their groceries and now carries their hopes. His global respect, from African bishops to European cardinals, ensures he could unite the College of Cardinals during a papal transition. This position would place Tagle at the heart of church governance, a silent but pivotal force in times of uncertainty. However, this temporary role might underutilize his pastoral gifts, which the narrative celebrates through stories of him washing feet and weeping with the broken. In the sacred stillness of the Apostolic Palace, where Pope Leo XIV and Cardinal Tagle share a table as humble as the carpenters in Nazareth, the Church glimpses a future of trust and mercy. For Cardinal Tagle, the most fitting role under this pontificate is to remain pro-prefect, or become full prefect of the dicastery for evangelization, augmented by a new Vatican initiative focused on youth engagement and social justice. The narrative's portrayal of Tagle as a prophet who moves hearts, whether in Mumbai's slums or Poland's seminaries, aligns perfectly with his current mission. As full prefect, he could lead the Church's evangelization with greater authority, nurturing missionary dioceses in places like Myanmar and South Sudan, where faith is a fragile seed. A youth initiative inspired by his World Youth Day talks that blend laughter and tears could counter the drift of young Catholics, drawing them to a church that listens, as Leo envisions. A social justice task force would amplify his voice for the poor, echoing his encounters with defectors and trafficking victims, and align with Laudato Si's call to heal a wounded world. The Camerlengo role is a compelling alternative, given the narrative's emphasis on trust and the thunderous silence of their meeting. Tagle's integrity, proven in Caritas and the dicastery, would make him a steady hand during a sede vacante, as Cavite's faithful, who trust his quiet strength, would attest. Yet, this role's temporary nature might dim the pastoral fire that the narrative celebrates. His ability to kneel, weep, and inspire. The Secretary of State position, while leveraging his diplomatic finesse, risks entangling him in bureaucracy, distancing him from the warmth that melted cynicism. A return to the Philippines, though a homecoming to rival the prodigal sons, would narrow his global reach, which the narrative portrays as a bridge spanning continents. This recommendation reflects the narrative's core insight. It was not about titles, but trust, not ambition, but alignment. Tagle's mission, as he said, is not about position, but about serving Christ. Under Pope Leo XIII, whose lines of suffering mirror Tagle's tears for the poor, he is poised to lead not from a throne, but from the periphery, where the gospel burns brightest. Their unity, forged in a room where time slowed, is a liturgy of listening, inviting the Church to walk slowly, deliberately, together. As the Vatican's great clock tower ticks, the world awaits the ripples of Pope Leo XIV and Cardinal Tagle's meeting, a conversation that speaks louder in silence than in decrees. Cardinal Tagle, with his heart rooted in Cavité's candlelit faith and his voice echoing from Nigeria to Poland, is called to a role that amplifies his prophetic gifts. As prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization, with a mandate for youth and social justice, he can embody Leo's vision of a church that kneels before it leads, listens before it speaks. The narrative's image of two shepherds at a modest table, their trust a double echo in the Church's life, reminds us that leadership is not seized but entrusted. Tagle, like Leo, carries a cross heavier than most, yet his smile, recalled by Cavité's grocer-carrying boy, lights the way. In this pontificate of bridges, he is not just a leader, but a brother, walking with the wounded toward grace. What role do you envision for Cardinal Tagle in Pope Leo XIII's church? Share your thoughts below. The third potential role is Secretary of State of the Vatican. The Secretary of State, as the Vatican's diplomatic chief, shapes the Church's global relations, from negotiating peace to advocating for human rights. The narrative highlights Tagle's ability to bridge divides, melting cynicism in Europe's press conferences, uplifting Nigeria's trafficking victims with words like, "You are beloved." His interfaith dialogue experience, engaging Muslim leaders in Mindanao and Buddhist scholars in Thailand, equips him to represent the Vatican with finesse. Pope Leo's own ministry of mercy, forged in Peru's villages, aligns with Tagle's approach, suggesting he could amplify the Church's voice on issues like migration and climate change. The narrative's image of Tagle leaving the palace touched by something deep hints at a diplomatic role where his empathy could forge new alliances, perhaps with secular organizations or non-Catholic faiths. This role would elevate Tagle's global influence, making him a leading voice for justice and peace, as the narrative's depiction of his cross-continental impact suggests. However, the administrative burden could distance him from the pastoral work that defines him, kneeling in parks, listening to refugees, potentially dimming the warmth that melted cynicism. The fourth option is leading a new Vatican initiative focused on social justice, youth engagement, or care for creation. The narrative portrays Tagle as a voice for the periphery, his homilies inspiring sisters in Mumbai to serve the homeless and seminarians in Poland to study pastoral trust. Pope Leo's vision of a church that listens to the wounded, evident in his own encounters with Peru's farmers, suggests Tagle could lead a task force on youth, harnessing his World Youth Day charisma, or on social justice, aligning with Laudato Si's call to heal a wounded world. The narrative's mention of Lead Like Luis and grassroots movements in Vietnam and Haiti shows Tagle's ability to spark global renewal without formal titles. This role would blend Tagle's intellectual depth with his pastoral heart, allowing him to address urgent issues like poverty, migration, or climate change. It would keep him close to the faithful, avoiding the bureaucratic weight of roles like Secretary of State, and align with Leo's call to find the prophets among us. The fifth possibility is a return to the Philippines or a regional role in Asia. The narrative's vivid scenes of Cavité's parishioners praying at the grotto and an elderly couple recalling Tagle's boyhood kindness underscore his deep roots in the Philippines. Returning as Archbishop of Manila or coordinating evangelization in Southeast Asia could galvanize the Filipino Church, a powerhouse of 80 million Catholics. His presence could inspire vocations, counter secularism among youth, and strengthen Asia's role in the global Church. The narrative's mention of Tagle as a global bridge suggests he could elevate Asia's voice, fostering dialogue between Manila's slums and Tokyo's urban parishes. However, a local role might constrain his universal mission, limiting the bridge he embodies.